evictions during COVID. This is the quick guide to unpaid rent eviction during COVID, protected and transaction periods, okay? So there are two periods that they divided into, March 1st to August 31st. That was the protected period. Okay, and then September 1st, they did the transition where they put the single family homes in and a bunch of other stuff, and it was a whole different set of rules. So when you're collecting rent, whether the rent was due prior to August 31st or after August 31st makes a big difference on how you collect it. Okay. Okay, so step one, you serve the tenant with a notice of California COVID Tenant Relief Act form NTRA, which I think I have here. Hold on, is this the NTRA? Oh no, it's the bottom one. Let me do it first. I don't know what that is. Oh. Huh. Oh, well, I guess I didn't get I asked for an NTRA and I got all of these things. That's so weird. Okay, well, I don't have that one, so we'll go back to the quick guide, sorry. Okay, so you use the form, I could have sworn I downloaded that, NTRA-2 for tenants who have unpaid rent as of February 1st, 2021. Okay, so that's before any COVID rules. So if you're evicting someone whose rent was due since previous to COVID as of February 1st, 21, I'm sorry, this year, as of February 1st, 21, the notice should be provided regardless of whether the landlord intends to serve a notice to pay rent or quit. So this is a notice everyone has to serve if you have rent due as of February 1st. Okay, service can be made by mail or must be tried in the following order: personal service, subservice, post, and mail. That's interesting. So this is how most of the unlawful detainer related things have to be served, either personal service, or you can go to substitute services when you go to the property and the person who you're trying to serve isn't there, but an adult is there. Another adult, you can serve them. That's called substituted service. And when you do that, you also have to mail a copy. And the last one is post and mail. You can tape it on the door and then mail a copy. And those are all good ways to serve this form. Okay, service of the form. Service of the must be made by September 30th. Based on. Okay, so service of the NTRA must be made by September 30th, 2020. I'm sorry, I should have read this before better. On or about February, use the NRA 2. Okay, so it's the NRA 2 that you use to send to the tenant, okay? The NTRA 2. The NTRA was the form that came out a long time ago that we were supposed to give to people whose properties were not in the Rent Control Act that came out in January of 2020. Okay, step 2, serve tenant with a 15-day notice to pay rent or quit. CAR form PRQ-CPP2 for rent due between March 1st, 2020 and August 31st. Okay, so you're supposed to serve the NTRA 2 to everyone, it appears, but that's not an eviction notice. The eviction notice it's a 15-day notice to pay rent or quit. No more 3-day notice to pay rent or quit. Okay, not for this period. So if they didn't pay their rent between March 1st and August 31st, which is probably our biggest batch of unpaid rent, okay, they're going to serve the PRQ-CPP2. It's a 15-day notice to pay rent or quit. Okay, or they could serve the PRQ-TP-2 for rent due between September 1st and June 30th. So those are the two forms and those are the two periods, and they have the forms are different. both if landlord is claiming, you serve both if landlord is claiming rent from both periods. So if they didn't pay rent at all during COVID from the very beginning of March, or sometime they quit sometime between March and August, and they still did not pay rent once we hit September, then you could serve both notices. But they have different ways of going at it, so you have to serve both. Okay, same thing with service, personal service, substituted service, post and mail. But you can't just mail. The other one allowed you to just mail. This one does not. Okay, they shall include amount and dates of unpaid rent. And there's a form for that too, CURC, which will be the rent form, which you'll fill in all the unpaid rent, which must be completed, an unsigned copy of tenant declaration of financial distress. So this form DCFD is the declaration of tenant still in distress. So you have to serve them with that, as well as the CURC and the PRQ, whichever one of those two meets your requirements. Pretty complicated, right? Lots of forms, but if you follow this step by step, you should be okay. Okay. Both forms shall include statutory notice regarding tenants' rights under the new law. Okay, well then they're already in there. And both are to include a statement, proof of financial distress if landlord knows tenant is high income. So I think I do have, this is the PR, here, let's make it a little bigger. This is the PRQ-TP-2. So it says right on it, for rent due between September 1st, 2020 and June 30th, 2021. So this is the eviction notice, tenant to pay rent. Okay, to the tenant, put in the address, within 15 days, excluding weekends and holidays. From this service, you are required to pay rent, which is past due, vacate the premises and surrender, or sign under penalty of perjury and deliver to landlord the declaration in 4B below, which is the blank declaration that the landlord has to send. Okay, and even if you deliver the declaration, you still have to pay landlord 25% of the amount due, because that's what you were supposed to be paying during that period. The signed declaration specified in 4B may be delivered to landlord in person or mailed to the address in 2D, or if checked, by email. So obviously you want to check email, just email it to them. Okay, rent due. Okay, so this is checked. I didn't check that. So that's automatically checked. The total amount and date for each payment, the date each payment became due is specified in the CURC. And then I guess you could put the total amount in line A. Okay. And then here is where you're going to deliver that rent to, and and what times and whatever. Okay. If you do not pay the past due amount or give up possession by the required time, or sign and deliver the declaration and pay 25% of the amount due, and you continue to occupy the premises, landlord declares a forfeiture of the lease. So we're forfeiting the lease, and a legal action will be filed seeking not only damages and possession, but a statutory damage penalty of up to $600. Whoa. I'm sure that'll help those landlords who didn't get any rent for a long time. Okay. Credit may be submitted to if you failed to pay rent. Okay, and it lets them know that you're notified that you could have a negative credit report if you don't pay your rent. The landlord can put something on your credit. Okay, declaration of COVID-related financial distress. So this is, they're still allowed, if they're unable to pay the amount because of decreased income or increased expenses due to COVID, you can sign and deliver the declaration to your landlord within 15 days. The 15 days is the same as you paying the rent. Okay, and they can't evict you for the missed payments as long as you make a minimum payment, right, of 25%, I forgot what it was, sorry, of 25%. You will still owe the money to your landlord. You should keep a copy or picture of the signed form for your record. So you're not getting out of owing the money, you're only just deferring it if you give the COVID declaration and pay the 25%. If you provide the declaration to your landlord as described above and on or before June 30th, you pay an amount that equals 25% of each rental payment that came due or that will become due during the period between September 1st and June 30th. that you were unable to pay as a result of decreased income or increased expenses, your landlord cannot evict you. Your landlord may require you to submit a new declaration form for each rental payment that you do not make that becomes due between September 1st and June 30th, 2021. So if you get that and you get you can't pay and you send that form to your landlord, they cannot evict you as long as you pay 25%. If you were unable to pay any of the rental payments that came due between September and June, and you provide your landlord with the declaration in response to each 15-day notice your landlord sent to you during that time period, your landlord could not evict you if, on or before June 30th, you pay your landlord an amount equal to 25% of the rental payments. Okay, so if you've already given the 15-day notice, I thought you couldn't give it until, oh, interesting. So I guess you can already give this 15-day notice, even before June 30th. You can give the notice. And if you haven't paid any of the rent, okay, you give the notice to someone. If they don't pay any rent and they don't pay at least 25% by the end of June, then the landlord can evict them. Because that was the deal between September 1st and June 30th. Tenants had to pay 25% of the rent, but they only had to do that by June 30th. And it's all okay. So if your tenant, again, gives you the form, you have to send them a copy of the form. If they give you the form filled out and they have a legitimate reason and they pay 25% of the rent, you cannot evict them still. Okay. It says you will still owe the full amount of rent to your landlord, but you cannot be evicted from your home if you comply with these requirements. You should keep track of what you have paid, obviously. You may qualify for rental assistance. An unsigned declaration of COVID, that's the form we talked about before, DCFD, is attached to the notice. So we have to send that in. To remind you, they put it right in here. Now, there's exceptions for high income tenants. And I think that we probably have plenty of high income tenants because we rent out plenty of high income properties. Landlord believes that the tenant is a high income tenant and has documentation to support that belief. I don't know what that would be, other than whatever the tenant gave them at the time they entered into the lease. You know, they showed them that they own a company that's worth $3 million or something, or that they have it in the bank, whatever. If tenant chooses to sign and deliver the declaration of COVID-related financial distress, tenant shall also submit, together with the declaration, documentation supporting the claim of COVID financial distress. So they can't just send you back the claim, check a box, sign it. It's not good enough. They have to send you proof. Here's my proof. Here's, look at my bank account is whatever. Here's my proof of why I can't pay this. I lost my job. My kids have been out of school. I've had to stay home. I've had no income. And you can prove that. Okay. Proof of income on file with your landlord indicates that your household makes at least 130% of the median income for the county where the rental property is located, as published by the Department of Housing and Community Development. As a result, if you claim that you are unable to pay the amount demanded by this notice because you have suffered COVID-19 related financial distress, you are required to submit to your landlord documentation supporting your claim with the completed declaration. If you fail to submit the documentation together with the declaration and you do not pay the amount demanded in this notice or deliver possession back to the landlord as required, you will not be covered by the eviction protections. Okay, so you send it out, you give the unsigned declaration, you get the declaration back with no proof, not good enough. Okay, not good enough. So the tenant doesn't actually read this, they just see that there's a document attached and fill it out, and they don't send the proof, then the answer is that you can still evict them. So they have to send both the declaration and the proof. Of course, judging if the proof is enough proof or isn't enough proof will be a whole nother story, but my guess is we're going to get a lot back that have no supporting documentation, if we get any. Okay, again, service of the notice to tenant under the Tenant Relief Act. The notice to pay rent or quit is for rent due between, again, September 1st, 2020, February 1st, 2021. Landlord has provided tenant with a copy of the other one, the NTRA 2, prior to the or concurrently with service of this notice. So you can send them together. Okay, so you can send all of them together. The NTRA 2, this document, the notice to pay transition rent, and then the 2 documents it requires that you add to them. Okay, the notices are due between February 2nd. So the first one's for you check if it's February 1st, September 1st to February 1st, and the second one if it's February 2nd to June 30th. And it's pretty much the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, but you have to check the right one. So pretty complicated, right? I assume that there's a billion questions because I have a billion questions too. But it's this is where we're going. So if you, I would say honestly, if you have a landlord who is owed rent and is anxious to collect that rent, we will I'm going to put together a little packet where we can send them saying, like this, step 1, but with all the documents. So I will be able to send you something that will go with this, that will be the packet of all the documents they need to send. Here is, here's the right, if it's between this period and this period, here's your packet. If it's between this period and this period, here's your packet. So we will get that out so that come July 1st, these guys can get going, or if anyone wants to send a 15-day notice to pay rent prior to July 1st, then I can get that stuff for them even quicker. But I will certainly get to that by during this week sometime, so that everyone will have all the documents that if they have a client who says, I want to collect my rent, what do I do? Hey, here's what you do, follow these instructions, here's all the documents, or I'll do them for you, or whatever you'll say, right? So anyway, that's how complicated this is. It's a whole bunch of documents, and you have to give tenants a whole bunch of notices and every right to come in and complain and whatever else. So, and I think we probably have a lot of landlords that are in this boat. So, maybe once we do it, you can just send out the whole thing to them saying, hey, if you need any help, here I am, but here's what we got. Okay, so that's the notice. I'm afraid to ask if there's any questions because I don't know if I'll know the answers right now, but does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So if I understand you correctly, Cindy, is that let's say the tenant has not paid rent and you're saying this June 30th, okay? And they have not, it seemed to me that the government is okay as long as there's a 25% being paid with the tenant, and the government is okay with that.
And 25%, and they say they have a COVID reason why they can only pay 25%.
So what happens after June 30th? I mean, can the landlord...
If they don't pay their rent in July, it's back to normal. Okay, so
evict, right?
Right, if they don't pay their rent in July, it's back to normal. But if they want to collect rent that was old, this is what they have to do.
Okay, so in other words, no matter what, by July 1st, just kind of make it very clear, they can evict them. Is that true?
Yes, and come July 1st, unless something happens that we don't know about, and no one's saying it will. Come July 1st, single-family homes, condos, and duplexes where you live, where the owner lives on one side, have no rent restrictions, no suing restrictions, no nothing. We're back to where we were pre-COVID and pre-January 1st, whatever. So, so yes. So if someone hasn't paid rent all along, but then they don't pay rent in July either, I think you can evict them for just that 1 month. But
okay,
if you want, you won't be able to add these other rents to it unless you do all this stuff.
Right. And then my next question would be, if I have a seller who wants to sell the property, and there's that thing about, remember you mentioned that you are okay as long as the notice where you are letting the tenant know that the buyer is owner occupied, but you cannot do a non-owner occupied. Does that still apply?
No, once July 1st comes, you can terminate a month-to-month tenant anytime.
Okay. So,
With no reason, no nothing, just like before, where you could, just because you're month to month, sorry, you're getting a notice that you have to leave, right?
so this whole thing about the excuse about it's gonna be, have to be owner occupied, you can, but non-owner occupied, you cannot. That doesn't apply anymore, right?
No, correct. We're pretty much out of all the rules.
All the rules. All right, good. I mean, that's
July
pretty good. July 1st. And is there a chance that this is gonna be moved again, do you think?
I'm not hearing anybody talk about it, and everything I'm seeing written says unless your county or city makes something. I saw something today that said no county, that nobody has yet, but I had heard San Diego did. They extended something. But other than that, no one's expecting anyone. You never know about LA, but no one's done it yet. No one's expecting it.
So that 60-day notice, if the tenant has been there for 2 years, 60-day notice, it doesn't matter anymore, as long as you give them notice, like
Correct.
a 30
As
day.
long as you as long as you give them just like before, here's your 60-day notice, your month to month, too bad. No reason. I don't have to say I'm moving in. I don't have to say I'm taking it off the rental market. Just, okay. I mean, you can never terminate a tenant who has a lease, so that doesn't change.
Oh, yeah, of course. All right. Thank you. That's
Okay. Before we leave, I have one just little thing I wanted to show you because I ran into it by accident. Not this one, this one. I ran into this by accident, and I saw the title, which was amending the appraisal contingency the wrong way and the right way. And we do a lot of amending of appraisal contingencies, and they did it in a way I had not really thought of. So I just wanted to share it with you. They got a bunch of wrong ones. Buyer shall pay $10,000 above the appraised value. They think that's a problem. Then they give the reasons. What they think you should say, let's just say the buyer has agreed to pay $10,000 over the appraised value. The first sentence of paragraph 31, which is the 3I, which is the paragraph that talks about it, is modified as follows. This agreement is contingent upon a written appraisal of the property by a licensed or certified appraiser at no less than $10,000 below the purchase price. So it's a little wordy, but I really like it. So I might be stealing it and sending it to you guys when you need it. But I like the way they did that. So whatever amount they agree to, you just make the appraisal contingency no less than whatever they say, 20,000, 10,000. I see some that only put 2.
Interesting.
So anyway,
Cindy, I have a question. I wrote an offer, and what I put on there is, it's crazy out there. So I put buyers offering $30,000 above the asking price, provided that home appraises at a minimum of the asking price. That's what I wrote down. But I put down the actual number.
So what does that mean? So let's just say that it appraises at the asking price. The buyer is going to pay $30,000 more.
Correct. I got beat by $50,000 twice.
Well, but yeah, normally it is more, that they're going to pay a certain amount over the purchase price. Anyway, I like this language.
That language does sound good.
And everyone, I'm gonna save it for my own, in case you guys want to too. Okay, so that is the end of the half hour. I did have one other thing, but that's because I don't like to be stuck in the middle. Anyway, so that's whether or not you remember anything or whatever I said. You should remember that when you get asked by your people that rent out property, what do I do? How do I collect my rent? And then you'll know that you could come to me, and then I could send you a whole packet on how to collect rent. This is what you do. These are your documents. Okay. Although we're not supposed to give out the car documents to people with my name on them.
Cindy, can we get a copy of that document you just shared?
Yes, I'll send out this and all the matching documents.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and have a great week.